Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at some Olsa tools, and these are going to be pretty interesting. These are the slim profile sockets, and I'm kind of interested to see how these are, and as a bonus round we're going to take a look at these and we'll get a little bit more into what these do in a bit. But for now, let's get the sockets out. Now we have SAE and metric here, and they come on rails. It appears as though the metric comes on a black rail and the SAE comes on a red rail. These are made in Taiwan, if you are keeping track. Both sets made in Taiwan. Alright, so getting into these are really nice and shallow. And some of the advantage that you would have with tools so shallow would be getting into really tight spots. So if you have these and you have, say, this has a hex around the outside, so you can put this on your regular ratchet and be pretty slim. You could put this on a regular ratchet and be nice and slim. It'll lock with the ball detent. A little bit of slop in it, but I also understand why they made the ball detent a little bigger, because these are primarily meant to use with impact tools, and that pin detent has a tapered pin, so it would center the tool up. So just to show that the hole works, we can show that, or we could take a 17 millimeter. That's what these will work with, a 17 millimeter ratcheting wrench, and that is where this comes in. So what you can do with these is you get 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and 3/8 inch. And the 3/8 you want to line it up with your pin detent, and you can push that right on there, and now you've locked your socket on to the driver. So now that is extremely thin profile. Let's see what we have here. We are right at a just over 1 1/8" profile, and this is a 24 millimeter socket. So you can see that this gets very thin profile, and if we want, this will go, the SAE set goes up to a 1 inch, and we could do the same thing and put this into our 17 millimeter ratcheting wrench, put our lock on, and I have a feeling we're going to see the same thing. Yep, we're just over, just around 1 1/8". So an 1 1/8" thickness for a 1 inch bolt head, that is extremely slim. So if you're trying to get into hard to get to areas, this is a really nice way of doing that. So that's for your slim stuff. Now as far as getting on with an impact, that's not a problem either. These are all chromoly, so they're more than enough heavy duty for putting on an impact. And the impact or your powered ratchet, you could run them with your powered ratchet as well. And just having a shallow set of sockets makes a big difference when you're getting into tight areas. Now, would these be your mainstay everyday tools? I don't think so. I don't know that I would want to go that route with these, but they certainly could be a major player for you. I don't know if I'd suggest to any of the younger guys to buy these first by any means. I think I would get probably deep sockets first, and then you could kind of expand from there. But if you had deeps, would I suggest maybe getting these next? Maybe. but it's all depends on what you want to go with. There's a lot of times I find myself going for a mid-depth socket for everyday use, but you get into situations where you need to get into tight areas, and that extra quarter, a half inch gets it. It's just one of those things. So to have stuff like this out that you can grab and use, super nice. Now the socket rails that they have these on are pretty decent. I would like them to not have as much extra space, but that's me personally. It looks like I could probably shorten that if I so desired. And maybe I will, I don't know. But it just takes up a little less space in the drawer, and that's one of those things that every little bit counts. But I do see where they went to. They have everything fits nicely in there. And interestingly, the rails actually have a pin detent on them. So that rail actually helps you. It holds on to the socket pretty good. So if you put it like this, it's in that pin detent, and it holds it pretty well. They also hold pretty well the normal way as well. I have them set on this way so that I can see what size they are and not do the guessing game as much. But to each their own. If you have a problem with them falling off, you could always spin them. I really like that there's stuff like this available. When I first started wrenching on stuff, you did not see stuff like this available at all. It was pretty much your deep sockets and your regular shallow sockets, and that was what you had to work with. So to have additional stuff coming out now that you can get to tight areas and everything else really makes a huge difference. I really like these. This is a really nice adaptation and a great way to really use and take advantage of this reduced drive. So let's see, your 3/4 would be a pretty common one you'd want to use, and it just fits nicely in that 17 millimeter, and then this easily snaps over top. And you could invert this the other way if you wanted. It doesn't have to go one way or the other. You could go, if you were buried down inside of something and had to get the other way, there you go. You have the negative angle socket. So that's a really nice feature that is really handy to have a lot of versatility in what you're doing. So since we got these out, let's take a look in the microscope and take a look at how these things are made and how they look. Okay, now we're back. Let's take a look with the microscope at how these are made. So when we get over into these, we are going to see that the sockets are marked. So I don't know if Olsa sells a 17 millimeter with like a hex, because this is kind of how the Klein Connects retain themselves. Now these do not go on the Klein Connects. Be nice if they did, but they don't. Here is your 3/8 square. You can see they have nice relief in the corners, so you're not relying on that corner, and you're not gonna damage that corner. Here the socket is struck 1-inch chromoly, and on the other side 180 degrees out it is laser printed 1-inch Olsa Tools. So this will wear off as time goes on, but that's okay because on the other side we're struck with the 1-inch chromoly, so you'll always know what size the socket is. Taking a look at the hex, you can see they have nice relief in the corners. which is nice to see. So you're relying on the flats of the fastener and not the corner of the fastener to do the work. Now let's take a look at a smaller socket and we'll see the same sort of thing. Here is our 5/16. You can see same thing, corners are rounded, square has that nice rounding, your 17 mil has those marks on it. And now you can look at how this, let's get it in frame, you can see how this just goes in to the socket, and you create an area between this ledge right here and this back piece. That is where it sits inside of your 17 millimeter. There's how much play it has. Not a whole lot. That's something that they had to just go with because, you know, what manufacturer you're using. But that's how it holds it in your 17 millimeter ratcheting wrench. You could also use just a regular 17 millimeter wrench, but the advantage of having a ratcheting wrench is pretty obvious. So all of these work, the 3/8 all work with a 17 millimeter. I mean, you could do any sort of which way fastener thing you wanted to do here. You could, if you could only get this socket on, you could drive this with just the open end of the 17 mil, or you could even put a socket on a socket and drive that with a 17 mil socket if you wanted to. You know, the sky's the limit. You guys know how that goes, connecting this to that to get to where you need to be. Size wise, we start at quarter, we go to 5/16, we skip 11/32. You know, I always like to see the 11/32 for the people that use 832 fasteners. Skip 11/32, 7/16, half, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, 3/4, 13/16, 7/8, 15/16, and 1 inch. So a solution to this would be, if it's cost effective enough, maybe they could come out with an 11/32 as a separate piece, and you could add it. There's definitely enough room on this socket rail. You could easily add another socket in there. Metric wise, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So it's all of them up through 24. So set's pretty complete in that regard. I would say the only thing that I see missing in this would be an 11/32. Could we get a metric-ish equivalent? Sure, but it's sometimes nice to have the actual size. Other than that, I am pretty happy with how these are made, how they're presented, and how they work. I have used, I think it's the 3/4, it doesn't look like it, but I did use this for something, and it worked like a socket. I mean, it's everything you would expect. There's not a whole lot of surprises here as far as manufacturing. I think everything looks really nice. Everything is stamped and laser etched. So if you look here, you can see there is stamping on pretty much all of these. You can see it the way they're on there. They all have stamping on them, and they're all laser etched. So if the laser etching wears off, you're still good. You still got all of your markings, which is really nice. Side note, not a huge note, but they come in a small cardboard box. I kind of like that. You don't have to struggle to get to your tools once you get them. That's kind of nitpicky and little stuff, but sometimes the presentation matters a little bit. Not a ton else to really go over. If you have any questions, let me know. These are chromoly sockets, and I guess we could do a hardness check on them with our hardness files. I'm not sure what it's going to tell us, but let's see how hard they are. Let's start at about a 55. And that is skating. Now I don't know if there is a coating. So the 60 is starting to dig in, and I would assume the 65 is definitely going to dig in. Yeah, 65 definitely digging in. So I would say this is very near, yeah, 55 skating, and a 60 is just starting to make marks. So I would say this is probably between, it's probably a very low 60s is what the hardness of these is, which I haven't really compared a whole lot of other sockets, so I don't know what that gets us, but I would put this between a 60 and a 65. So there's a point of reference that we'll have to compare other sockets in future and see how they come. Now let's see where, if we're consistent with our driving piece. That is definitely digging in with a 65, which I expected. And yes, we are pretty consistent. We're mostly skating with the 60, just starting to make a mark. So they are fairly consistent with how their stuff is being made, and I really like this idea. This is something that I think is really kind of missing in the market, a way of getting your ratcheting wrench, in this case, to make it so shallow and not fall off. I think this is a good solution to that problem. So really nice to see that. I'm sure some other brands have this sort of thing as well, but I saw these when I ordered these and I thought, why not? We'll just get them. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have these? I know there's a similar set available at another store, but those are 1/2 inch. These are the 3/8. We might take a look at 1/2 inch in future, but these are 3/8 drive, extra shallow sockets. I really like them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you have them? Did you get them? Do you not like them? What don't you like about them? Or what do you like about them? I really like the ability to use this 17mm wrench and be super compact with everything. Let me know what you think. So as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.